Welcome to the June 14th, 2022 meeting of the USD 305 School Board. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we do have a pretty full agenda this evening. If I could get an approval of the agenda, that would be, or a motion to approve the agenda, that would be great.
Mr. President, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Zimmerman seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. So we will go into the first item here with Mrs. Kamian, the You Make a Difference Awards.
Staff members are nominated by colleagues to receive a You Make a Difference Award for their support of students and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Board of Education members, surprise recipients during their workday with a lapel pin and a handwritten note. And these are the last that were delivered before the end of the school year. One was to Cassie Chesney, a Central High School nurse. Cassie's connection with students has helped them feel a sense of belonging to the extent that they would stop by her office to check in about their day. She also assisted at Opportunity Now and sponsored the GSA Club at Central High. Thank you, Cassie, for making a difference. Vicki Brunner, special education coach. Serving the preschool classrooms in our 8 elementary schools, she covers a lot of ground and yet still is able to go the extra mile. She helped train new paras, offered ideas, and made arrangements for students and filled in when classrooms were short-staffed. Thank you, Vicki, for making a difference.
Thank you. The next item we have is with you, ma'am, and it's on the 305 video.
All right, I'll get that pulled up. This evening, we're sharing with you the new promotional video for our school district. It shows some of the ways students' greatness grows at Salina Public Schools and why this is the best place to learn and work. You can find it on the USD 305 YouTube channel and on our website. It is being used in a Facebook advertising campaign and is being played on Channel 20. I would like to offer special thanks to everyone who had a role in this project.
Salina Public Schools are driven to be the best place to learn and work by embracing challenges, creating belonging, fostering pride, and inspiring hope. The district offers personalized and safe learning environments with a vast array of opportunities to engage every student beyond the classroom.
What makes USD 305 so unique is we have a variety of different services for all types of students.
We have all of these rich learning environments. We have art classes in all of our schools, a welding class, jazz band, we have orchestra, and huge theater productions.
When you think of our pre-K program, our sports, what we're doing with Salina Virtual Innovation Academy, when you think of our career and technical education programs, over 100 different types of internships and AP classes for college credit, there's something for everyone, and everybody has a way to find success.
And wherever they go, they're going to need to have both academic skills and also the life skills that they need to survive.
We really want to focus on the whole child. So we have social emotional curriculum taught K through 12, some really strong community partnerships with Central Kansas Mental Health, and we have full-time social workers and counselors in every building.
They're going to take these soft skills, the need to show up every day with a positive attitude into the career path that they want. And one of the hallmarks of that is their individual plan of study. We look at what are their interests, what are their skill sets, what courses are applicable for them. And we have 16 different career clusters ranging from manufacturing, industry, finance, marketing, computer science, communication, education, human services. The list really does encompass most of the career pathways in Kansas.
The things that interest them the most are really what we want them to focus on, because that's what gives you fulfillment in life. And we really want to make sure that we have a robust system that allows students to pursue whatever their hearts desire and to be exactly who they want to be.
Thank you.
That's a very nice video. Thank you.
When's the next one?
Here it comes.
Only half the
We are. There is the next one.
Very good.
But you're kidding.
Thank you, Ms. Kamian. Appreciate the hard work you've put into that and all the other pieces you've been working on with the marketing and stuff. Your team's been working really hard, and we greatly appreciate that.
In the video, that it was a real team effort across the district from elementary school up through administrative leadership. So thanks to everyone who had a hand in that.
Yes, very good. Okay. The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda items, to include the minutes of the May 10th, 2022 regular meeting, the personnel report, the financial reports, including the May bills list, the April treasurer's report, the April investment report, the April journal entries, to approve the encumbrance listings to include to Techline Sports Lighting in the amount of $173,200 for LED lighting at Salina Stadium, to ABC Creative in the amount of $50,270 for the purchase of a playground structure at Meadowlark, to Constructive Playthings U.S. Toy Company, Inc., for playground equipment for the Heartland Programs location in Abilene, to Johnson Controls in the amount of $75,227.41 for the installation of electronic entry control system at Hageman Elementary Center, to Dell for the purchase of Chromebooks in the amount of $94,592.50, to CDWG for the renewal of the Go Guardian in the amount of $52,895, to Great Minds in the amount of $74,227.75 for the purchase of math workbooks for grades K through 5, to Zern Inc. for school account services in the amount of $20,000, to Curriculum Associates, Inc. in the amount of $217,897.50 for the renewal of iReady, to Cisco Food Services in the amount of $142,000, and Highland Dairy in the amount of $25,000 for Heartland Early Education, to CDWG for the annual Microsoft licensing renewal in the amount of $114,509.38, to Intrado for the annual renewal of the school messenger in the amount of $24,050, and the annual insurance package renewal in the amount of $1,112,092 to Iron Insurance Partners, to approve the Central High Robotics gift acceptance in the amount of $10,000 from the Gustav and Hannah Applequist Pass-Through Fund through the Greater Salina Community Foundation, to approve Meadowlark PTO gift acceptance for playground equipment in the amount of $8,500, to approve Mental Health Intervention Team Program grant request in the amount of $279,000 with a district match of $93,000, to approve Safety and Security grant request in the amount of $37,613, and to approve the Heartland Child Care Partnership contracts to Abilene Child Care Learning Center and Sharing and Caring. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I move we accept or approve the consent agenda as presented.
Ms. Zimmerman moves to approve. Ms. Casso seconds. All in favor, or any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is public forum. We do have someone who's asked to speak tonight at public forum, Mr. Bruce Wyatt. If you could make your way to the podium there. And I do have real quick, just a quick statement to read for citizens' participation in public forum. I know you've already read the guidelines for citizens' public participation. At this time, we have public forum, and I'd like to read the guidelines once again just for the public. Public forum is a non-action item on our agenda. The board appreciates patrons taking time to share with us about their thoughts and concerns. Public forum is a time for comment on non-agenda items. Comment on agenda items may be allowed later in the meeting. This is not appropriate time for or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student. Persons making comments which may violate the privacy rights of district employees and students will be asked to stop speaking or cease their remarks. If a patron or parent has a concern with one or more employees, the board will refer that person to the appropriate supervisor or to the superintendent for further review. Please understand that it is not the board's practice to respond to public forum comments or questions. Mr. Wyatt, go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the board and Madam Superintendent. Board members, Madam Superintendent, my name is Bruce Wyatt, and my wife Margaret and I live at 4401 West State Street in Salina. We are in the USD 305 district, just barely, as it turns out over all these years. And our children are Central High School graduates. Like all of us, I am concerned about the continuing violent assaults on school children occurring around the country, and would urge this board to review and consider taking additional action for the protection of our school children. I know that procedures are in place now for their protection, but further steps should be considered. In particular, all persons, children entering the school building should pass through equipment designed to detect weapons. I understand the board has considered the use of the present technology with metal detectors. I also understand that these detectors are expensive and would involve substantial delays in children and persons entering the building. Present efforts in profiling persons likely to harm school children and efforts at gun control are not having the desired results. I believe the better focus is to identify and prevent weapons from being carried into the schools. Technology is evolving in the use of equipment designed to detect weapons. For example, equipment can be found at evolvetechnology.com that is designed to identify weapons as persons walk through a number of screens that they are specifically designed to detect weapons without people emptying their pockets, as is, of course, a real delay, we know, in going through metal detectors. You've got to take everything out and so forth. But these allow for a great deal of people to pass through quickly in entering a building. I mention this not as an expert on the subject, but simply to demonstrate that technology may be developing at a point which will allow us to better detect weapons. It's a demonstration that technology may be developing to address these concerns of getting students into a building quickly and in a timely fashion. At the same time, I think it might be a good idea to suggest to have a centralized system that identifies when locked doors have been opened to prevent the situation where a door is opened from the inside and then used by someone avoiding the normal entrance. This might be a set of blinking lights, for example, in the school office that are monitored. I believe that an alarm system does go off now when doors are opened for a certain point of time, but I believe a centralized monitoring system would be preferable. In closing, I want to acknowledge that the board and the administration have been diligent in their efforts to protect our school children, and I thank you for this. I do want to suggest that this is a moment in time to consider further efforts and new approaches in light of the ongoing attacks around the nation. I believe that we all want to do the best we can and not look back and wish we had done more. Thank you, and a copy of my remarks have been left with the board clerk. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wyatt, thank you for taking time to come and visit with us. We do encourage and value input from the community and the USD 305 patrons, and we do appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. Okay. The next item on our agenda this evening is the 2022-2023 school site councils with Ms. Exline.
You will find in your packet a list of the recommended members for each building school site council for the 2022-2023 school year. Board policy does require that we approve site council membership, and this is part of the accreditation expectations from the state that we have a site council and that site council gives advice and counsel to the building principal on issues related to school improvement. And so at this time, it is recommended that you approve the 22-23 school site council membership and meeting dates as presented in the packet.
Thank you, Ms. Exline.
Mr. President,
Mr. Grant.
I move we approve the 22-23 school site council's membership and meeting dates as presented.
Motion, is there a second? Ms. Casso seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Zimmerman.
Yes, I'm just curious if this is, did you say statutory or by policy, state policy? What did you just say?
This is actually in board policy, but it is also a requirement for accreditation. So it is a state regulation that we have that site council in place as well.
So my question would then be, what if they need to make changes in the middle of the year? Somebody moves away or can't do it? Do we have to approve that too, or do they have some flexibility there?
They have some flexibility. They present to you the list as it is right now, but sometimes when we have new families that learn of the site council and want to be involved, we go ahead and include them. Our goal is to have as many families and community members involved in providing that advice as possible. And so these do fluctuate a bit during the year, but we ask you to approve the kind of base membership once a year.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is with Mr. Upson regarding department software programs.
I got to turn this down a little bit. Good evening. You're going to be with me for a minute. I got a couple items on the agenda. Computerized maintenance management systems, or CMMSs, are software systems designed to manage physical assets by scheduling, organizing, tracking, and optimizing maintenance. CMMSs are used to make maintenance process both reactive and proactive more efficient, as well as provide consolidated data to inform resource decisions. So that's the published, that's what I'm publishing, that's what a CMMS is. But I want to put this in your mind as the vision for the CMMS. So I'm a teacher in one of our schools, and the sink in my classroom, something's wrong with it. It's leaking or something. There's a QR code in the classroom that the teacher scans with their phone, and it immediately pops up with their room number, and they type in there that their sink's not working. They put in their email, and they put done. Immediately, the facility manager sees that pop up on their device as an item. And they can choose to either accept it as a work order and fix it themselves, or pass it along to the shop, to the our maintenance techs. When they pass it forward, it shows up immediately to our plumber. Wherever he's at in the district, shows up on his device as a work order. So that's the vision on the teacher side. What's going on now? What's happening now is maybe we get an email that goes to the facility manager. Maybe there's a facility manager walking down the hall and the teacher says, hey, my sink's not working. So it's an unreliable system that we're using right now. It supposes perfect organization, perfect communication, and perfect memory, because we're not capturing things right away and putting them into a system. So that's at the teacher level. At our technician level, what's going on is we typically get things over email or phone call on a problem in the district. It'll be interesting to see how many problems in the district we have, because I don't know that, because I don't have a system to keep track of that. So I don't know all the hundreds of calls that are received. So from a maintenance person's perspective, rather than getting phone calls and emails, and that's the way that they're learning of new items, they automatically drop onto their device. So if they're up inside of a ceiling somewhere working on something, they're not getting a phone call that they feel like they have to answer. So they stop what they're doing to answer a phone call and then have to remember what it was that they were told was a problem. And then usually they say, hey, can you send me an email? Well, the facility manager is probably on the other end of the building at a leaky faucet. So they got to remember to go back to to send an email so that we keep track of this thing. So that's at our technician level. At the management level, imagine going to your refrigerator and scanning a QR code, and it'll tell you every time you change your filter in your water, in your fridge. It'll tell you the last person that you called to come fix it, and when, and how much it costs. So this system will enable us to look at all of our assets as if we want to look at them all together, or we want to categorize them and say, what kind of drinking fountains do we have and which ones do we have more problems with? And when we say more problems, what are we talking about? Are we talking about more money, more time, downtime, uptime, whatever we want to look at? So it'll allow me and my managers to manage the assets and make smarter decisions about the things that we're doing. It'll allow us to be more proactive instead of reactive. It'll allow us to program preventative maintenance on as many items as we want to, knowing that the preventative maintenance is always cheaper than the reactive maintenance. But it'll allow us to do that. We do preventative maintenance now. We don't do it near enough, by my estimation, and I would love a way to systematically keep track of each thing that we're doing preventative maintenance on. The selection process, there's hundreds of different products available that do this. Each of them kind of started in a niche. So they started, for example, for manufacturing. So that they all different places. Some started for schools. Some started for aircraft. They all started somewhere, but then they decided they couldn't make enough money there, so they kind of opened it up to have other clients. So the bottom line is there's a lot to choose from, and they're all kind of the same, but a little bit different. So our selection process, Dwight and myself, Dwight did the first look, which was basically a customer satisfaction and basic requirements look. So he looked at dozens of different providers and narrowed that list down to 5, I believe, that met all the requirements and had good reviews and had school experience. Then we put together a committee involving MIS, facility managers, some folks from our technical shop, to receive a demo from the different companies and provide feedback to us. In the end, they chose Akita Box is the company, and
Akita Box's location-based asset mapping system was built to revolutionize the way your team manages assets and completes maintenance, while providing a rich experience for timely and coordinated efforts across your buildings. It all starts with PlanView. AkitaBox uses a direct integration with Autodesk Revit, paired with our team of on-site data collectors to give your organization new, accurate floor plans in a BIM file format, providing a digital ecosystem that will stand the test of time. During data collection, our teams locate and document a standard list of assets for you, covering your major, but not limited to, electric, plumbing, fire life safety, and mechanical assets. QR codes get placed on your major assets and can be scanned for rapid access to asset information in the field. Our teams take photos of the assets for clear identification amongst your teams, in addition to entering the name, manufacturer, model, and serial numbers. Customize the data fields within your assets to track and manage any data you see fit. Important documents such as O&M manuals and warranty information can be uploaded and connected directly to an asset. After AkitaBox implements your major assets, you have the power to add as many new pins and pin types as you see fit. Build out your AkitaBox solution to track any asset in your facilities you need. If you want to add a new asset directly to your floor plan, access PlanView and click on the Add button in the top right of your screen. If at any point you find it necessary to move the asset to better represent its position in the room, just click Move, click the new location on the floor plan, and you're good to go. This asset's new location will update for all to see. If you want to view recent activity of the asset and work orders associated with it, click More Details. This will bring you to the asset's information and list view, where you can add internal notes, add new work orders, and take other necessary actions. If your floor plans are looking a little cluttered, you can filter what you see by asset type, hide them all by filtering, or hide all active pins. Let's say you're walking your daily route and want to find the location of a specific asset. You can use the search bar up above to quickly find the location of an asset and its information. AkitaBox was built as a reservoir of information that allows better decision making with increased speed and accuracy. Say goodbye to time lost searching and welcome in a new future of time saved while doing. AkitaBox. Learn more at akitabox.com.
Can I answer any questions?
Ms. Zimmerman?
This is a little bit in the weeds, but I go out to classes a lot and use their Promethean boards, smart
Yes.
boards, and some of them gradually get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. Pretty soon you can't see them unless you turn the lights off, and then the kids go to sleep. And there ought to be some way to figure out what's the cutoff point to say call for help, call for replacement when your board gets too dim. There you go.
Noted. We do have a project this coming year to investigate new technology to replace the Promethean, the metal structure Promethean boards. Because we do have the lamp issue, the poor little lamp gets tired and gets dimmer, and if we don't know about it, we're not dealing with it, and then we get a guest that wants a bright screen, and I hear what you're saying. But the new project, not related to this, but the new project will investigate smart panels, basically TVs on carts that serve the same function. And we're kind of working on a mobile solution, which would solve a lot of problems for maintenance also, because one teacher wants it in one place and those Promethean boards are bolted to the floor. It's kind of tough to move them. But if they're mobile, that'd be great. They're also quite a bit brighter. It's a TV brightness. So we're looking at that to decide which direction we're going to go to phase out the Promethean boards.
I was making a list of questions here. Mr. Gardner, go ahead.
This shows that it's an annual cost of $32K.
Yes.
Why does that not get cheaper once you've bought the software?
So they all of the companies bill a little bit differently. And with the Kita Box, one of the selling points with the Kita Box is that they send a crew out to help us build the system before it ever goes live. And other companies either didn't do that or they paid a third-party company to come do that. One of the issues we have is that we're a plane in flight right now, and we don't have the resources to stop flying the plane to build the system to have it work properly. They're all expensive. They're all in the $20,000 a year range plus setup fees. So the worst thing that can happen is we don't set it up well and it's not very useful and we just wasted money doing it. So a Kita Box is the name of the game for them is that they build in that upfront cost of sending a crew out and mapping. I don't know if you caught that, but they map all of our buildings in CAD. They map everything for us. They embed that cost in years. They're hedging their bets that will stick with them for 5 years. I think that's what we heard was that it takes them 5 years to recover that initial cost for them. So that's the situation with the Kita Box and why a lot of them were that a hefty upfront fee and then a lesser fee from in the out years. The level of service with the Kita Box, we're convinced, is quite a bit better than others as well because of that embedded cost that we see the same annual cost year to year, that we get the same level of help setting up new things, new construction from year to year.
Just to follow up on that question there, Mr. Upson, and this may be getting a little far in the weeds, but when we hear that, what is the term of the contract? So is this a 5-year commitment, and are we locked in for that amount for 5 years? Or are we doing it year to year, and next year it could be 40,000? At the same time, are all facilities covered, or are there facilities that would be left out of this?
It's a year-to-year contract right now, as it's written. The intent is that if we've invested all this, we're gonna stick with them longer than that, but it's an annual contract. I need to review and see if we have any price guarantee. We are using a cooperative purchasing to get at this. So it could be that the cooperative purchasing contract is gonna govern what the cost is. My intent is that all facilities, we'll have all of our facilities in this. And that's facilities and grounds. So rather than have a floor plan, they'll pull a Google Earth image and we can plot playground equipment, for example, and say this is a piece of playground equipment and we can put a tag on it.
I had a couple more questions here. You described the way the process works. Does it triage things as they come in? For example, if something is deemed a safety hazard, does that move to the top of the list for folks, or do they just come in an order so they're a plug drain to this, to that?
Yes, it does triage items. And so we get to customize how we do that, but it has that capability to the way that their company describes it as the level of asset. They categorize assets into tiers. So a first tier asset would be, they've got like air handling equipment as a first tier asset, which basically means your building is dead without this thing working. And so you can automatically set them up to where those will be priority one and jump to the top of the list for the technician that it goes to. But we can set that up and customize that. Obviously, safety issues would be one of those that we would say we want that to turn red and put an exclamation point on it and go to the top of the list, and it'll do that.
I appreciate that, and I think that goes to even some of the comments Mr. Wyatt made about, if someone notices something that's a safety issue, it's not making a call where we could forget about it for a week and then it opens liability there. So, very good. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? This is an item on our action agenda, if there's a motion.
Mr. President, I move we approve the annual subscription to Akita Box to provide CMMS for Salina Public Schools in the amount of $32,000.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Zimmerman seconds. Any other questions, conversation? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Upson. You also have the next item on our agenda.
So we're in management system mode. This has been, so we're talking about facility use. Board policy encourages outside patron use of our buildings. And that happens, and we do that. We're also using our buildings for curriculum stuff and extracurriculum stuff and co-curricular stuff. Our buildings get used a lot. The facility use management system, the way we do it right now is paper and email. And we don't have a centralized calendaring system, a centralized scheduling system. That's just the way we've been doing it. So the vision is, if I'm a Girl Scout troop leader, I don't know if they're called troops, a Girl Scout troop leader, and I want to schedule a Coronado because I'm going to have an event, I go on Coronado's website and I click a facility use tab, and it takes me to a reservation system that shows me the calendar for that space in Coronado. So if there's a basketball thing going on there, it won't let me schedule. It's blocked out. Kind of like if you try to reserve a hotel room and they're booked, you can't reserve one. That's the vision. Now, also, our facility managers and our principals can look at their building and see indefinitely all of the things that are scheduled in their building. That's both internal and external. So at the high schools or the middle schools, for example, we have a lot of extracurricular scheduling going on, a lot of games and practices and different events. Coaches can schedule those inside this scheduler the very same way, and an outside group can't use the gym if we have basketball going on. What this allows us to do is it allows us to make the communication more efficient by centralizing the scheduling in real time. Right now, what happens is you fill out a piece of paper, you have no idea if something's available or not. You fill out a piece of paper, and that piece of paper gets to a principal and the facility manager who look at their calendar and decide if they can host or not. And then if it's approved, it makes its way to my office, and my executive assistant processes that and figures out what kind of fees are due and does that whole process, all on paper. We're missing a lot in that. There's a lot of miscues and miscommunications that are happening in that, both on the billing side and on the use side. Also, what happens this time of year is we don't have a whole lot of time when our buildings don't have kids in them. So operationally, we're trying to accomplish some goals in the buildings that really don't want to have people in the buildings while we're doing that. Right now, I've seen this evolve year after year on the best communication I can think of happening, and still we can't make it quite work, and we still end up with scheduling problems to take care of our assets, which is frustrating for the person that thought they could use the facility because they got to find a new place for whatever, and they might have hundreds of kids coming, and frustrating for us because we might have 3 different contractors scheduled to come in, and that's the only week in the whole year that they can do that. So it's very difficult. I would also like to, a vision is to recover the management hours that this is requiring. That allows us to keep our chargeable costs low, which I think is good for the community. And it allows us to recover better what's due to us. The system that I'm proposing automatically invoices. It'll let them know right when they schedule what the cost is and invoice them. It'll keep a running list of who's paid and who hasn't, and we can decide whether we're gonna send things to collections or what we're gonna do with, when we have issues with that. But it'll all be in one centralized location. It'll be much, much easier to manage and keep track of. Ultimately, I'd like to increase facility use revenue. We don't often have places where we can make money. Over the summer is great because supervision for things is built in. Our staff, most of our staff moves to a day shift over the summer. So if we have activities going on during the day, sometimes even in a little bit into the evening, we already have staff there. So it's really not costing the district a whole lot of extra manpower and hours to have somebody hosted in a building. Yes, there's custodial things that go with that, but predominantly it's a sweet spot of being able to offer a service to the community, probably more reasonably priced than anywhere else in the community that you can get space. And we'd like to capitalize on that. That money goes back into the general fund and we can use that for needs that the district has to serve kids. So I'm proposing Brightly's Event Manager Enterprise System. I selected that as the best value option for Salina Public Schools. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have about that.
No videos?
No videos on this one.
As I think through that, Mr. Upson, do we invoice a lot? It seems like in today's world, we would almost expect if they were in reserving online, they'd just go ahead and make that payment and the reservation. It seems like that would free up a little time.
Yeah, the system allows you to pay online.
Okay.
So you can, we get to determine. We get to determine whether we want to, you got to pay before you can use the facility, or you have to pay within a certain period of time after you've used the facility. But it'll allow us to pay, allow customers or patrons to pay online and be done with it and not have to write checks. And some people don't know what checks are anymore. And you know, that circumvents the whole need to invoice if we can get it done right away. But I'm with you in agreement that a lot of things are done that way today, and the fact that we're not doing it that way is probably causing us problems, because it's like people aren't used to it. They pay all their bills online, and it's just easier.
Any other questions? Ms. Costello?
So who will still manage this? Is it still managed by the schools individually? Just when you said, you know, maybe they haven't paid their bill and we can decide if we allow it or not. Who still manages it?
So the billing I'm proposing would still be managed out of my office.
Okay.
But the actual approval of events and the scheduling of events during the school year, the building leadership team makes those determinations. So we would build that system so that the approval process would go through the principals and the facility managers and athletic directors. And then the billing side, you know, rather than paper having to go back and forth, it's all already in the system, and Susan Lawrence in my office would have access to all the buildings and be able to see what's being paid and not, and be able to handle it from there. I don't want the buildings to have another thing on their plate. The intent of this is to make it a whole lot easier for facility managers and principals and athletic directors, and for the folks that are interested in the billing part of it. It'll be easier for the business office, easier for my office. So the intent would be that if we have a problem with somebody not paying, or a payment problem or an issue, that would still be in my office. The building wouldn't have to worry about that. We would handle it.
Questions on the board? This is also an item on our action agenda, if we have a motion regarding this item. Mr. Grant?
Mr. President, I move we approve the annual subscription to Brightly to provide an event management system for Salina Public Schools in the amount of $10,201.67, and the one-time implementation cost of $7,695.48 for a total amount of $17,897.15. All math I did very quickly in my head.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Schamberger seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Upson. And we have another item, Operations Center Drainage Easement.
So this is an item that slipped through the cracks, and we're trying to deal with that right now rather than do the autopsy on how it all happened. But with the construction of the new warehouse, there's a drainage easement on that property. It's a detention pond. And when we built Salina West and the current operations center, we had to build a drainage easement on the property. And the purpose of a drainage easement is to retain, well, this particular drainage easement or the detention pond is to hold water that would otherwise be held on the site. Once you put a whole bunch of paving on there, the water wants to run. And rather than have the water run into the storm system and end up in the river directly, the city would rather have it percolate into the ground and go back into the groundwater. So it's pretty common in engineering circles to do that. When we built the new warehouse, that detention pond wanted to get bigger. It needed to get bigger because we paved more, less permeable soil there. So in doing that, we needed to make the easement for that bigger. The city wants an easement around it to protect it so that there's rules that govern what we can and can't do in that area. We thought we had all this taken care of, and you start doing final inspections on buildings and these things start to come to light. So their system worked, it caught it, we need to get the easement. So what I have before you is the revised easement, and we're asking for the board president's signature on that, acknowledging that easement. And then on Monday, I believe it'll go on the city commission for them to approve it, and then we'll be good.
Any questions? Is there a motion? Ms. Zimmerman.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the drainage easement for the Operations Center campus as presented.
The motion, is there a second? Mr. Gardner seconds. Any questions regarding this matter? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. We will now move into our discussion agenda, and the first item we have is with you, Mr. Upson, regarding the property at 219 South 3rd.
Okay, the image that you're looking at is 219 South 3rd. That's the Salina Education Center, formerly Opportunity Now. And I've color-coded this, and I've spent probably the entirety of my time as the Executive Director of Operations unpacking and unfolding this property to understand it. So here's my best simplified way of describing what's going on here. This was private property a long time ago when they were still writing deeds with quill pens, which is tough to read, by the way. At that time, the private owner deeded this property, the center part of this property, the red, boxed in red, deeded that to the city to be a park. And it was in fact called City Park. Sometime later, the city deeded it to USD 305 for educational purposes. And I've put the language of that deed up there that says essentially we can use it for educational purposes, and if we don't use it for educational purposes, it has to go back to the city. Sometime in all there, we bought the southern portion, which I have boxed in purple up there, all the way at the south. Those were 5, I believe, residential lots on the south end. So the north end mirrored the south end. The north end has changed a little bit, but the south end, we bought up all those properties one by one, and then we built a high school there. That was Washington High. And we've since demolished Washington High, and the property has been platted all in one chunk. So that one piece of property is deeded to USD 305. We own it. but not entirely, because part of it, the purple part, we own outright and can do whatever this board wants to do with it. But the middle part in red still has that reversionary language associated with it. And that reversionary language says that we can't just sell it, we have to use it for educational purposes or give it back to the city. Now, why does any of this matter? It matters because city wants to develop, developers are wanting to develop. They're looking for moderate to low income housing options. They're looking kind of all over the place to do that. And there are apparently several developers interested in this property or pieces of this property for that purpose. So then it begs the question, how much property can we sell and should we sell? So that's the question before you is, should Salina Public Schools pursue selling a portion of the 219 South 3rd property? We would be proposing to sell some version of the blue outlined area, which also includes part of this area that has the reversionary language. What we're looking to get out of this is for the city, for us to fix the deed so that we don't have that reversionary language anymore on that property. And there's this, Ms. Exline and myself have been working with the city manager and deputies thereof to try to figure out a way forward through this to, really what we're talking about is serving Salina. A piece of property that's ideal for maybe high density or low income housing, some version thereof in that space. So the facts and concept is, I've said that the several parties are interested. We would pursue a formal agreement with the city of Salina to kind of protect both parties. And the city of Salina and us, we obviously need to satisfy statutory requirements. Salina Public Schools would issue a request for proposal for the land to be developed, and we would figure out how to craft that, but what we're interested in is residential development, not commercial. The city of Salina must consent to the selected proposal, so they get to weigh in on, what the proposal looks like and whether they agree with it or not, so they don't end up with something that nobody can live with. The sale proceeds would then be divided between the city of Salina and Salina Public Schools and be prorated by square footage. So that little sliver at the top that still has reversionary language, that portion of the proceeds would go to the city of Salina, and the southern portion that we own outright would go to Salina Public Schools. Then for the future, if we at some point decided we wanted to sell the rest of that property, what would happen is we would prorate that sale as well, so that the proceeds that are attributable to the building itself would go to Salina Public Schools, because we paid for that building, and the proceeds that would be attributable to the property, the land, would go to the city of Salina. But I think we're at a point now where the city, the powers that be and the commission are generally in agreement that we can make something work here. What you see up here are kind of the cliff notes of the language that the city commission has kind of agreed to, as that's something that they could get on board with. So what I'm asking you today is if you want us to continue to pursue this and start working on an agreement with the city and maybe some requests for proposal language and try to get this thing going, or whether we should full stop or anywhere in between.
I look at that bottom bullet. I assume if we get the building proceeds, do we get the opposite if we have to destroy the building?
I don't understand.
If the building would need to come down, would we be stuck with the cost of that?
I think we would be in the seller's seat at the time of sale. So if we chose, we would have a choice as to whether we wanted to, if the property, that's a good question. If the property's worth more with the building not on it, that's a good question.
I think if you go back to your other slide, and this is just recollection for me, because I know we've talked about this before, the blue box there, if I understand really there's, the purple by itself isn't enough land to be useful for a developer, is that correct?
You got
And that's-
something, Lynn?
Or does it square it up? I'm trying to remember some of the,
We absolutely could sell, those 5 lots are a significant piece of land. What that additional area does is just opens up more development opportunity. And so the larger piece of land that we can get, the more appealing it is. Now, in my conversations with Mike at the city, at any time, if, the board would be the first to say, yes, this particular proposal we can support, because it's going to be in front of our school building. And then at that time, the city would look at it and see if they could support it. At any time, we can sell that part that is purple, no questions asked, if that's how the board wants to proceed. If the board wants to try to address that reversionary language, this is a way for us to get that addressed and to give a little bit bigger piece of land that would allow somebody to develop a little bit more. Market rate housing is kind of what the conversation has been. And that is right along the walkway between downtown and the river. And so a pretty nice piece of property to be able to develop, given all of the development downtown. Now, to your last question, Jim, about the building, that is certainly something that we could include, but the board would have the decision whether or not we would dispose of that land and under what conditions. And so we would be in control of what I wanted in here when I was negotiating with them was an agreement that if at some point we do want to step away from that other land, that we can do that without going back through this deed process. Because it took hours and hours and hours for the people that have currently been involved, several attorneys, Chris. And so we wanted to get something on paper if you want to move forward with us that would allow us to not replicate that when those of us that are in this room are gone. But we could always say no if it wasn't of benefit to us to sell that property that the building's actually on.
Would we solicit RFPs for both the blue and the yellow initially?
No, at this time, the concept is before you is, well, at this point, it could either be purple, the purple box, the blue box, or the yellow box, but we do have a program that's in the building right now. So we really didn't contemplate the whole campus going right now.
Our goal right now instructionally would be to keep that building because we do have that 18 to 21 special education transitions program there. And the location of that is ideal for those students because of some downtown partnerships and work opportunities for those students. So if we were looking, if the board's will was to look at selling that, taking proposals for that entire property, at that point, we would need to figure out what we want to do with that transitions program. I did engage in some conversations early on about other places that we might be able to put that program, should we abandon this building. And at that time, there weren't a lot of options, but if the board wants us to re-engage in that conversation, we certainly can. Okay, but the intention would be to keep that area that is above the blue.
Mr. Gardner?
It seems to me that the important thing is to get the verbiage so that you don't have to come back and repeat the process again.
Correct.
As it relates to the red section outside of the blue. And so it sounds to me like we're using the building and there is value in having that program where it is currently located. And since God isn't making more land, I would strongly suggest and urge you to just maintain that, but then just get the provision taken off of
discussion, questions? Ms. Zimmerman?
Well, we don't have any proposed motion here, so I'm just trying to think what needs to be done right now. Do you want to, would it be better to move now on it or wait until next month when it's on the action agenda?
I'm going to defer to the clerk and Lynn on what they need to do at this point.
If you want to chew on it for a month, I don't know that there's any huge rush on this, but I would like to get this moving forward because this has been a conversation that we've engaged in over and over. The last email I got on this was today, asking where are we? And so if the board is open to us continuing the conversation, Mike Scragg is prepared to have additional conversation with the city commission on his end. So he's waiting on us at this point.
I think that what would happen is there would be an agreement with the city that would come before you for approval. And then there would be the results of a request for proposal process, if we got to that point, which would come before you for approval. So there are some checks in this, that the multiple steps where you're going to be involved in that. We just asking if we should proceed with working up an agreement with the city at this point.
Yeah, I think proceeding is a good idea, and I think we kind of all have a consensus on that, but do we need a motion? No. Oh, well, that's easy.
Scott just shooed me.
So if there's consensus at this time, and it looks like there is, we'll go ahead and proceed working with the city and be back to bring suggested language, and then we can massage that to where we're all in agreement on it and see if we can't get this moving forward.
Sounds
So,
good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
Mr. Upson.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to hearing more about this property.
All right.
Very good. The next item on our discussion agenda is with Ms. Rector, the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy Handbook.
Good evening. I bring to you proposed changes for the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy Handbook, and I just bring you the portion of the handbook that would have changes for you to look at tonight. And so Mrs. Hutton worked with her staff and looked through the handbooks, and so there's a few things that she would like to kind of clarify for families or to provide some additional language to help families as they work with their students. And so under the Learning Coach area, so this is in your packet, so under Roles and Responsibilities, Learning Coach area, they would like to delete the alert school of student absences. And for that, the reason for that is because of the virtual nature of the courses and how they get online and how they work. There really isn't a mechanism for them to look at those absences on a daily basis, because really that virtual aspect is anytime, anywhere. And so they wanted to kind of clarify that language, that they didn't need to alert the school directly for those absences. And then you'll see further below, adding just some individual language to monitor grades and progress using the parent portal. So just kind of reminding parents that there is a mechanism for them to be able to look at what their students are working on through the management system of the curriculum, adding that language also to the 6th through 8th grade level. And they felt that the information was already pretty much there in that 9 through 12. And then you'll see attendance and truancy. And as we kind of looked at our virtual school program and working with the individuals from the state, Mrs. Hutton has also worked with other virtual programs across the state to look at kind of how do we look at attendance and truancy from that virtual aspect. And so one of the things that they're looking at is to have the adequate program progress, maintaining the set pace. That's kind of an individualized process based upon the students, the age level of the students, and so forth. And that's set forth at the beginning of the year as they're working with those parents, those learning coaches. And so making sure that those students are making adequate progress, and that's kind of based on that individual need, but kind of utilizing that language instead of some of the more traditional language that you see in a truancy process for a brick and mortar school. And then you'll go on to see that, we've eliminated some wording in the absent reporting procedure and kind of clarified some of the aspects to set pace, and kind of talking about that engagement and re-engagement with the families, making sure to recognize that this is a relationship between those families and that the principal, very similar to the relationship that you would see at a school working with counselors and social workers and so forth. And so the truancy reporting mechanism, that was language that was in there originally that came from a traditional school where you're going in, they look at consecutive absences and unexcused and excused, removed that language, and then kind of added a little bit of clarity to on academic notice. And so you'll see that there's some information there that kind of talks about, that back and forth, but also that there could be a probation period if we're not seeing that the student is making progress on that work. And then the very end, the change there is to add some information about academic dishonesty, and so adding a statement about any manner of falsifying progress with online curriculum. So making sure that, they recognize that students that will go in, and if there's any falsifying of that work that they're doing, that would be considered academic dishonesty. So general kinds of changes to help clarify and to maneuver in that virtual schooling environment. And so these are the recommendations that are being brought forth from Tracy Hutton for their handbook. And then there's other components of this handbook that stay in place. And then any changes that were made at the middle school and high school handbooks that are relevant to this particular handbook would also be incorporated into it. Any questions?
So are the handbooks all available on the website?
Yes, they will be available on the website. The virtual handbook is something that they go over with the students when they come through, but it will be available on the website, yes.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, I struggled with the first sentence where it says if your student fails to maintain a set pace. If the student is working but they're struggling with a specific section and they're falling behind, why would you consider them to be absent?
So maybe some clarifying language in there that if there is progress being made, that it is the action of progress that they're looking for. I can see that concern there. I'll work with Mrs. Hutton on the language for that.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Ms. Simmons?
Just to continue Mr. Gardner's comments, it seems like what the point is, failing to maintain the set pace is that they're not so much engaged. They're not engaged. But if you're trying and you're not succeeding, that's engagement, even if it's not success. So, but it might not keep you on pace, so that, see, it's sort of a funny, well, you have to figure out the way to say it.
And really the intention is the fact that no matter what school we're at, when we think about students and when they're attending and they're working towards a goal, that there's a back and forth working with that family. And so we want to make sure that that language exemplifies that kind of back and forth work happens at the virtual school as well. So I will work with Tracy to look at that and make sure that we try to clarify that, to recognize that sometimes small increments of movement is very successful for that particular student. I think that the main thing on this particular section is because it's in the truancy section, is to show that really engagement with the work is what we're looking for. And so we just need to make sure that we get language in there that helps with that.
It's an indication of how the world's changing, and sometimes things don't fit in the box. I guess I'm thinking of truancy with a virtual school is kind of an interesting concept to sort through.
And that's one of the things why some of the more traditional language was in there to begin with, because we really didn't know what that frontier looked like. But as we were working with families, it really is about the conversation and how to support. And so, it is not our intention to take a student forward with truancy. It is our intention to find a mechanism to work with that family for that student to be successful. And I know that that's what the virtual program is trying to do.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay,
I'll
thank
bring
you,
back
Ms.
language
Wright.
at the next meeting. Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll now go to Ms. Wright for support staff handbook.
Hello, I'm here tonight to talk with you about recommended changes to the support staff handbook. These were discussions as a result of the meet and confer process with our classified staff, similar to our negotiations process, a little lighter, but we meet and discuss the contents of the handbook and work conditions for that group of staff. And what you have before you are the results of that discussion this year. I believe that was back in April or May, I think. The first you have there is the addition of the changed dates for all of our holidays, and the addition of the Juneteenth holiday for the year-round classified staff. We added a provision for the expectation for classified staff during power outages when potentially the work that they are being asked to do, they cannot, because they cannot access computer network, for example, and the expectation for what happens if they are called back during that same time. And then 5.2 is the addition of the maternity-paternity leave, which we actually added last year in the negotiated agreement for our certified staff. We're now extending that to our classified staff as well. Do you have any questions or comments about those?
Ms. Zimmerman.
I just found the meet and confirm meeting on my calendar. It was on February 24th.
February, my goodness, it was a while ago.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Mr. Graham?
If there are no objections, I would make a motion. I move we approve the changes to the 2022-2023 support staff handbook as presented.
Okay, we do have a motion. We have a second, Ms. Casso. Any conversation, discussion regarding that motion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Next thing on our discussion agenda with Ms. Kamian is the marketing update.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide you an update about our new marketing campaign this evening. Our campaign aims to establish our district as the school of choice within district boundaries, position our district as leader in whole child education and opportunities, and ensure local families who prefer online learning are aware of our virtual option, Salina Virtual Innovation Academy. In addition to this general mission, there is a specific emphasis on families with young children because we want to serve them for their entire school career. Our process is built upon research, was undertaken in March and April, and involved determining which types of marketing are best, planning, which took place in April and May, and identified strategies and channels driven by our audiences, and implementing strategies, which began in May. Evaluation will be ongoing with continuous adjustments, and on the left is one of the Google digital ads that are running. As a side note, Facebook, Instagram, and the ads on Google have a sensitivity filter to help prevent them from appearing on dicey sites. Our audiences are parents and families who reside in our district, with a focus on families with children aged 3 through 5th grade. Moving to Salina from other communities, those who previously had a student enrolled in Salina Public Schools, and our own district employees because of the value of them as our district ambassadors. We want our employees to know the stories and information behind the greatness that grows here in Salina Public Schools. Additional audiences include realtors, property management companies, and HR professionals at large employers here in Salina. The research phase involved 3 focus groups that were held and included community members, parents, business representatives, staff, and students. In addition, there were 2 interviews and a meeting with team. District materials were reviewed, ranging from social media banners to enrollment communications. A competitive analysis was conducted that included website, search engine optimization, SEO, analysis, and an overall digital assessment. District themes, including possibilities, our great teachers, and being the best place to learn, work, and live, reflect the key values that came through in the focus groups. Opportunities, meeting every child's unique needs, aspiration, preparation, the strength of our teaching staff, the benefit of the Salina community as a whole, economic development, importance and in support of the arts, etc. New branding was developed to provide an update that matches our district's refreshed marketing and communications. The color palette on the right displays colors incorporated into the campaign. Cougar green and Mustang red are included, as is the district's logo, red and green. Blue is traded out for yellow to bring a liveliness. The brightest colors are featured in the campaign materials for preschool and elementary families. Additionally, a style guide has been developed to make sure that our visual branding matches the professional standards of our district. The campaign theme is Greatness Grows Here. It speaks to opportunities, possibilities, and excellence. Imagery is being used to drive home the personal and caring values. Greatness Grows Here has expansion potential. Variations of this could be used or could be effective beyond the enrollment marketing campaigns, such as Grow Your Greatness Here, Plan for Greatness, like with the individual plan of study, and more. You'll see our new hashtag that was developed to tie into the overall refresh, hashtag 305 Grows Greatness. That hashtag is now active. The timeline to implement our new strategies is this past May through next school year 2022-23. The campaign with adjustments has been developed so that it can be used even further out. Our approach is, while we have multiple strategies to implement over the next several months, our current focus is tightly stitched to our key levers to achieve short-term goals. Those key levers are a personal outreach campaign, digital advertising, and enrollment communications. Our short-term goals are re-enroll formerly enrolled students and enroll new students within our district boundaries. Digital marketing. Examples would be website content, Google, display, Facebook, and Instagram ads, search engine optimization, and increasing online reviews. Storytelling includes collecting testimonials and quotes, website stories, newsletters, videos, and academic recognitions at schools. Internal marketing involves our employees and making sure they know about the great things happening in our district. Public relations, PR, communications, involve the personal outreach campaign that was held in May. This strategy also includes direct mail, Greatness Grows Here flyers, refocusing on great customer service, walk-in, and neighborhood school enrollment. Word of mouth influence involves an ambassador program and family representatives for our schools. For the preschool age family strategy, a parent guide content hub will be developed on our website, and events and collaborations will be arranged. This and more will be phased in over the next school year. Our main priority at this time is enrollment. This is a postcard, and it's part of the personal outreach campaign to former families by principals that included a friendly phone call, a personal email follow-up, and a handwritten postcard. All these steps were taken by our principals just before they started break. This slide displays our Greatness Grows Here flyers. These will be available in digital and print formats for use late this summer and beyond, primarily for prospective families, but also for other audiences. We have an elementary flyer, a combined middle school, high school flyer, Salina Virtual Innovation Academy flyer, and an overall district flyer. A new enrollment landing page on our website was developed to receive traffic from digital ads such as these. The digital ads are displayed on Facebook, Instagram, and Google in front of parents with children who are early childhood and elementary age and who live in our district. On Facebook and Instagram, the current ad campaign is using the district's new promotional video. And this is the end of the presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions at this time?
I think it all looks great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work that's gone into that.
Much needed.
Yes.
Good.
A
Thank you.
nice refresh.
Thank you for your support, and it's a pleasure to work with the service of the CEL company. So, thank you.
Okay, the next item we'll move into is school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. We'll start with Ms. Schamberger.
Okay. Well, I attended both graduations and delivered a You Make a Difference award.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Attended graduations and a Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting and a CKCIE Board of Control meeting. I don't think anything big to report from either of those May meetings.
Unfortunately, I missed every meeting because of my kids, but I did make it to graduation, and I wanted to say Superintendent Exline and Mr. Smith, fabulous presentations at both graduations. It was really enjoyable. Thank you.
Ms. Simon.
I attended the graduations. We didn't have any equity council this past month, and I did, through the Salina Arts and Humanities, I sang for lunch at Sunset and Schilling for the public lunches that were there, and had a really fun time.
Good, thank you. Mr. Gardner?
I just attended the graduations with everybody and enjoyed your company. Did you get paid to sing?
Yes. Not a lot.
Very good. I also got to go to the graduations, and we're underway with negotiations with KNEA, and been to a couple sessions with that, and forward to moving through that pretty quickly here. So
That makes her a professional.
a professional singer because she got paid. Very good. We do have the SAEC graduation on Thursday of next week. Hopefully you can attend that. And our next item will go to Superintendent Exline for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple updates. I am going to be at the KSDE budget session tomorrow. We should be getting extensive information on the appropriations bill that came out of the legislature. One of the issues that came out of that bill is the expectation to do a more formalized needs assessment. And our schools have always done a needs assessment where they've reviewed student progress and identified needs on both the social, emotional, and academic side, and communication with parents, parent involvement. But one of the expectations now is that that be posted to our website. And so our buildings have been engaging in that. There are several other things that are expected out of that appropriations bill as well, and so I'll know more after tomorrow. I'm anxious to hear what is expected of us. The other update that I wanted to give you is we have been a flurry of professional learning this summer. We have had suicide prevention training that came out of Mrs. Rector's department. We've had mental health first aid training and project-based learning training as well. We had a group of administrators and teacher leaders that went to training on collective efficacy. That is the highest proven strategy to improve a student performance, is to build an environment where teachers get around a problem and feel like, you know what, we have the support and the resources to solve this problem for students. And so just really trying to figure out how do we empower staff moving forward to do what they need to do for students. So some exciting things there. I do want to say thank you to Chris Upson for the vision and mission on the back wall. I just think it's absolutely lovely, and I appreciate his work in the design and openness to feedback on it, and I think it turned out marvelous. So thank you, Chris, for that. The last thing that I want to tell you is that when we meet for our retreat, I would like for you to bring an item from your childhood. An item from your childhood, that just so that we can get to know each other better, something that you'd like to share. We did this as an administrative team, and it was just a really fun conversation. So it can be anything that you want. I will not bring the mouse that I brought to Team Retreat. I'll bring something else instead. So that, but if you would put on your calendar to do that, and I'll try to send you an email to remind you of that as well. Okay?
Okay, very good. That gets us to our executive session that we will have for negotiations. If I could get a motion, how long do you think we need this evening for that? 30 minutes?
I think we can probably do it in 20, but I always underestimate, so I'll
Okay.
defer to you. You thought 20 as well?
You thought 20? Okay. If we can have 5 minutes between now and then.
Make a motion, Mr. President. I move the Board of Education go into executive session at 7:03 for 20 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations, because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize the resolution of the negotiation issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene in open session at 7:23 in the SEC room.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Zimmerman seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Back from executive session, we don't have any action after our executive session, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Gardner, Ms. Zimmerman, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.